Good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight for this Monday, March 4th, 2024 City Council meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Schultz.
Here.
Latta.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Hallbaker.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Chrisman. Dunn. Here. Councilmember Chrisman absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And if willing and able, please stand for this Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. So we need to approval of the minutes. So look for a motion to approve the minutes, regular city council meeting, February 9th.
Second.
Motion seconded. And all in favor, voice vote?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. So, Madam Clerk, any agenda revisions?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now move on to special presentations, and I do have an update on presentation. We will have public comment available for after this, so quickly I'll read through this based on the conversation we just had at our Committee of the Whole meeting just before this. So regarding the ceasefire request, regarding the request for a ceasefire resolution in the Israel-Gaza war, it's the consensus of this council that is not an appropriate action for us to take as a municipal elected body to speak unanimously on behalf of our 41,000 residents on issues of national foreign policy. That is the responsibility of our national elected representatives, and as such, we will not be taking up the ceasefire request for them. That said, however, we do recognize that we have residents and community members who are directly and significantly impacted by the war happening in Gaza, as well as some of the actions that have been taken by our state legislature in the year regarding this conflict. And I do feel it's appropriate for me to comment on a few of those concerns. First, in response to the one-sided statements that were made in House Resolution 101, passed by the Iowa State Legislature earlier this year, the City of Cedar Falls affirms our commitment to protect all residents and community members from acts of crime and unlawful discrimination, regardless of religion, race, nationality. And second, the City of Cedar Falls affirms our commitment to combat anti-Palestinian and anti-Arab bigotry, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia in all forms. And third, the City of Cedar Falls affirms our support for the rights of all people, including residents of Cedar Falls, to live, learn, work, play, worship, and engage in peaceful protests, all without intimidation, coercion, or threat of violence. And fourth, the City of Cedar Falls affirms and stands by the First Amendment rights to criticize government or government policy, and affirms that criticism of governments in Israel and Palestine is not inherently anti-Semitic or anti-Arab. And fifth, the City of Cedar Falls affirms our commitment to working with and supporting our staff and our Human Rights Commission to identify and promote community education resources and support services available to Cedar Falls residents and community members affected by the ongoing conflict. Madam Clerk, I will submit these comments to you for reflection in the minutes. And with that, we will move on to public comment. So speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight?
You go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Just name and city for the record, please.
I am Mark Succi. I live in Cedar Falls, Iowa. I live up 3202 Cypress Avenue, Cedar Falls, in the North Cedar area. I am a board member on the North Cedar Neighborhood Association, and I'm the chairperson for the North Cedar Natural Resource Project. And I'm here to talk about the speed limit on Center Street.
So I know this is on the agenda. I believe Mark needed to leave before. So if everyone's okay with it, we'll let him speak now.
I'm here speaking on behalf of other residents here, and I think what I have to say they all agree with. And so what we're talking about is from Clare Street to Lone Tree Road. It is a length of 8 city blocks, which I figured it out on my odometer. It's 0.6 of a mile. 3 of the blocks are 25. 5 of the blocks are 35. I got anal today. I drove the distances. If I drive the speed limit the way it's posted as it is, it took me 1 minute and 13 seconds. I drove it at 25 miles an hour the whole way. It took 1 minute and 27 seconds. So there's a difference of like 14 seconds in driving time. So it's really, so what we're talking about is safety. It's what it's about. And to have a consistent speed from one end to the other. It doesn't make sense to have 2 blocks where you speed up and slow down from 25 to 35, and 3 blocks on the other end. 3 blocks from Clare to the school zone, and then it's 2 blocks after it goes back up to 35 going north. And then one thing I want to point out is, on the north end, you have 2.5 blocks where it's 25 miles an hour, but on the south end, it's only a half a block to the school zone. It's like, why is there a big difference coming to the school zone from the south and then coming from the north? And if you was to make it equal, you'd about take it down to Clare Street. If you did 2.5 blocks on the south and 2.5 blocks on the north. So it's about being consistent, and I think if we had a consistent speed from 25 the whole way through, I think it would be good for safety and be good for the residents. And basically, this whole area is all residential and business. South of that, it's 35, and there's really not much on there for residential. And once you get past Lone Tree Road, there's no residential on the east side of the road, and that's 35. So we're just asking to make that corridor from Clare to Lone Tree Road 25 miles an hour, and it's only changing 5 blocks, 5 city blocks. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Other public comment? Just name and city, please.
Sonny Bach, Cedar Falls. So obviously I can be a very respectful person, and I appreciate what you guys are saying. I hope this goes through for you. I really do. I've heard it before, so I think it is great. So got a couple things. First, I want to start with, we didn't have public comment after Chelsea got before. So Chelsea has been doing a fantastic job, and I'm so glad to hear from several of you that you support the DEI efforts and what we've been doing, and she's been a great addition to our team. And I'm here to ask you for continued support on what she is doing. Specifically, what I think would be great, and I've talked to some other people who are on the Racial Equity Task Force, is for her to specifically have an advisory board of professionals that are not city employees. I think the employee resource group is important, but someone that she can reach out to, people that are immigrants, bilinguals, that are bilingual, so she can go into that community. So let's say we hire and we get some of our diversity better, but then people get hired and they leave, okay? So she can have some resources to say, well, how can we keep them? How can we have them stay here? What is the retention? So I have mentioned this to the mayor, and I think this would be really good for something for us to support her in. I'm a little bit more shaky today than I normally am because the last 30 hours of my life has been really interrupted. And the reason that things like this advisory board and Chelsea's position is so important is because there's really no place for people like me in this administration. And I'm not saying it to make anybody feel sorry for me, but it just becomes more and more apparent all of the time. I'm gonna get off track. Councilman Schultz, I was a little disappointed to hear that you said that people in this town are afraid to come because of the protesters. They're not violent people. So there shouldn't be any reason why anyone should come. I heard some people come here and speak really strongly about College Hill. So
Just quickly, Sonia, the policy is to direct comments toward me. You can speak about the comments from the council members, but.
All right. So we've heard what you have to say about the ceasefire. I just want to kind of go over some things. And so that would be, I witnessed what happened in Waterloo versus what happened here. Waterloo has the same issues that a lot of you had with the ceasefire, and so I understand that. But one of the differences that I saw was the fact that they had 2 work sessions. And even though they really didn't change so much how they were going to handle it, there was the civic engagement, there was conversation, and there was more understanding, which I think is what's really important. Also, is the difference between the dynamics between the 2 councils and the cities is the diversity. My opinion is that the council was very firm in what was city business. I'm not going to argue with you about that. That's what you believe. But when we have the diversity and the other council, it's not very hard for people that are marginalized and oppressed to understand and recognize when other people are marginalized and oppressed, and that we need to listen and validate and try to understand. The civil engagement that this group has done has been respectful, even though people are saying they wouldn't come here because they're here. There's probably other reasons they wouldn't come here because they're here. I'm going to be far more respectful than the mayor was to me in the last 30 hours, but I just think that there's always a benefit in conversation, a benefit in exchange, because where there's confusion, there isn't going to be any kind of moving forward.
Just 1 minute, Sonia.
Okay. So I'm going to end with the same question that I asked you before is, are you really representing the 41,000? Really quickly, I won't give you all the stats, but in the last election, only 16% of Cedar Falls actually voted. And so I've asked, how are you engaging with that other 84% to make sure that you are actually representing what they are saying? And then I'm just going to end with 2 words. Aaron Bushnell.
Thank you, Sonia. Name and city, please.
Hello, Amelia Gotera, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I've been here before and spoke with you. Our community group of citizens are here gathering to protest the concerning developments around the ceasefire resolution and the way that this has happened. It's shocking to see, to hear city councilors say that they're hearing people are intimidated to be in this chamber with people who are engaging with democracy. That is what this is for. That's why there's seats in this room, right? For people to come here and to tell you what they need and to tell you what they feel and to ask for your help. I see us coming week after week and telling you what we want. We are telling you what we want as your constituents. At what point does it become city business when the people of your city are telling you, help us, this is what we want to happen? I think it is laughable to hear a long conversation about, I understand trash is important. I get it, you guys. Like, I'm on the same page. I need my trash picked up. I don't want it to go up over the edge or whatever with the 90-degree angle or whatever. You know what I mean? But then we're sitting here and we're telling you there are 80% of the people in our world who are dying of starvation, 80% are in Gaza. I don't understand how many, it doesn't seem to matter how many facts I can put up here about the slaughter of the Palestinian people, because it's clearly the concern is that it's not city business, but it does not sit well with me that me showing up, that all of us showing up to your chambers respectfully, legally, with a clear message for you, right? To engage with you in democracy. By what you have done, by not allowing this to go to a work session, to even consider a vote on, it's effectively shutting down any kind of official dialogue about this important issue. It's important to your community. And I would also like to echo the idea that I heard you say that you've been looking into it and doing education, and I have not heard any calls for a survey. I have not heard any calls for an open conversation with your community. What were you doing to gather that education, to get the information? If you cannot answer that, let's do better, right? Okay, because the Human Rights Commission is going to be holding educational events for Cedar Falls and for Waterloo again, for those of you who didn't show up, And I think it's so important that you at least look like you are trying to learn. And I challenge you to look at all these people in the room and go home and look at yourself in the mirror and consider whether or not we matter, and consider whether or not we are members of your community, and whether or not what we have to say and what your community has to say is city business. I'm just not buying it. So because you have effectively shut down any dialogue in this room about what we need from you, what the people of Palestine are begging for, an immediate and permanent ceasefire. We will continue to show up and we will protest and we will make ourselves heard and be loud, and we will not stop. So a proclamation is not the way to make this go away. I think that's clear. Free Palestine.
Thank you, Amelia. Just name and city, please.
Hi, my name is Ev Wilson. From Waterloo, pronouns he, they. You tell us you aren't ignoring us. You tell us that it's not that you don't care. You tell us it isn't city business or a city issue. Well, it's an issue. An issue becomes city business when the people living in your city tell you it is an issue. You say it's a matter of priority. Is the safety and well-being of Muslim, Palestinian, Arab, and Jewish citizens not a priority to you? You cannot combat anti-Semitism, anti-Arab bigotry, and Islamophobia by refusing a ceasefire resolution. The people of your city want a permanent ceasefire. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Just name and city, please.
Hi, Sam Blatt, Waterloo. I didn't plan to speak to you all today. I just kind of came to help with the group, but I was just so shocked and disheartened at what happened. I felt like I had to. I'm not a Cedar Falls resident. I'm in Waterloo, but I'm on the Human Rights Commission of Waterloo, so I've been working closely with the Cedar Falls Human Rights Commission as well. Recently, we hosted a teach-in for educational purposes with a panel. I only saw 2 of y'all there, so I do think the City Council could use more education, quite frankly, and I feel like many more of you need to be educated, and if not educated, at least more compassionate, right? Our tax dollars are going towards this. Like, that goes towards city business because we're in this state, and state legislation also, affects that as well. So I don't think that this should have been closed out. And I think, just like I'm echoing the other 2 folks and many more who are going to speak, they're demanding a ceasefire. And if your constituents are demanding this, and 16% of them voted for you, right? That's the 16% are probably people who are also showing up here right now. And you won't do the humane thing. So just let me leave you with this. Please check your privileges and check your priorities. And if you ever wondered what you would do during the Holocaust, it is what you are doing now. Thank you. I need a ceasefire.
Sam. Name and city, please.
Good evening. I'm Byron Plumley, 1716 Park Drive, Cedar Falls. I spoke to you a month ago about a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. At the time, I naively thought that there would be no hesitation to have our local officials call on the U.S. government and demand a ceasefire. I thought we might add our voice to voices across the country, to cities and city councils, for an end to the killing in Gaza by U.S. weapons and starvation. Wow, I was wrong, and sadly, here I am again. Well, after 5 months, the destruction in Gaza has only gotten more extreme. The word genocide is not used lightly. In 1943, the Polish Jewish scholar Raphael Lemkin coined the word genocide. By 1946, the United Nations adopted the term as the denial of the right to the existence of an entire human population. Now, they found the word genocide because in 1941, Winston Churchill said, "We have a crime without a name." Well, Limken gave it a name, and the United Nations adopted that. Today, not only human life, but also universities, museums, mosques, the artifacts of antiquity, the Palestinian culture is being systematically destroyed. This is the elimination of a people. Today, every bullet and bomb used by Israel says made in the USA, paid for by Byron Plumley and by any of you who pay federal taxes. We condemn Hamas's war crimes, but we provide the weapons for Israel's war crimes. We are so complicit in this genocide. I certainly understand the city's desire to avoid controversy and to say it's really not our business. But now, no matter which way you go, there is controversy about the U.S.-supported Israeli war in Gaza. We don't want to be involved. We don't want to speak out. But U.S. citizens are deeply involved. All of your constituents here in Cedar Falls, whether we pay attention to that or not. We are U.S. citizens. We're deeply involved. So, if you can't sign a resolution or even make a proclamation calling for a ceasefire, I hope you will individually let our congressional delegation know your position. Write to Senator Grassley. Yeah, and you'll get the State Department letter in return, but hey, at least you'll put your voice forward. In a democracy, it's important to have a voice, hopefully a moral voice, to stop the violence and stop the killing. For Israel and Palestine, the choice is nonviolence or non-existence. Let us support nonviolent peace building to assure that all people have land and can live with justice and security. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Any other speakers for public comment? Just name and city, please.
Sandra, Cedar Falls. This is the fourth time I'm here asking for a city resolution that is asking for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, West Bank, and all of Palestine. You notice I had written out speeches and very articulate, very well thought out prior to this, but I'm tired of trying to leverage respectability, especially when it's coming from marginalized people. Leveraging respectability just for you guys to consider the humanity and the atrocities that Palestinian people are currently experiencing. And I want to make it clear that Danny, you said that this action is representative of the 40,000 plus people in the city, and yet where are the people who are against this action? And if people adequately using the public forum, the platform you provided for citizens to voice their concerns, if that is enough to intimidate these supposed people who are against this, then I don't know what this is for. And I just want to make it clear that, Danny, you attended the Waterloo educational event, and you heard from Palestinian people in this community. You saw them with your own eyes. You talked with them. You had conversations with them. You heard them talk about their family members who they had just brought over from Gaza. You had heard them tell stories about losing numbers of family members that no one should ever, like 18 was the number that someone said. And you heard them say that don't listen to anybody who tells you that a city resolution is not city business. You heard Palestinians in this community say that. And your response to that is saying that a city resolution is not appropriate. And that's just so ridiculous to me. And I remember when you were trying to get elected, a big part of your messaging was recognizing that Cedar Falls was only Cedar Falls for like a select group of people. And for me, that's white collar, that's white, and that's exactly what this council is to me. And to think that a council of that nature can adequately speak on the experiences, the atrocities, the genocide that Brown and Muslim people are experiencing, and in Palestine and right here in this community, watching that happen abroad, is beyond me, and it's just not. It's just not accurate. And I think it's interesting that you bring up the House Resolution 101 in terms of attacking protesters and organizers for this cause, but that resolution specifically opposes any ceasefire resolution until Israel has finished Hamas, is basically what it says. And yet, in recognizing that, you fail to recognize how a city resolution, if you're truly against standing with your community and voicing support of this and having them not be targeted, you don't recognize that a ceasefire resolution at the citywide is a direct response to that, is a concrete policy decision in terms of standing with your community and their ability to rightfully speak up against this. And I think it's so funny that people on this very council are the ones who have questioned organizers within this group, their identities, who have come into their work or like just threatened their work, their job, like just straight up. So I think that's funny that you're saying that you stand with us when this very council is some of the ones who are perpetuating those actions. And again, we heard just earlier this evening during the work session that you would much rather talk about trash, you would much rather talk about sidewalks and parks than that. Apparently that is city business. And I just want to ask you, when does parks, when does sidewalks, when does overflowing trash become more important than people? Trash and sidewalks didn't get you elected, the people did, and it's your responsibility, it's your job to listen to them. And yeah, I just want to leave you with that. Free Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. And I do just want to say quick, if there are any specific instances of anyone on this council approaching any members and causing any intimidation, I will follow up and address that, because that is not acceptable.
Hi,
Just name and city, please.
my name is Mary Carroll, and I live at 2126 West Lone Tree Road, Cedar Falls. I want to thank this council for listening to these people, because that is what they want, is listening. However, I disagree. They have their perfect right to protest and say that, but we don't have to agree with what they say. So I am very proud of the proclamation that you wrote. I think it's a great thing, and I think we should follow through with that and let the people who are in charge take care of the things that actually will make a difference in this world. I don't think we need to spend our time and money making a proclamation that really won't serve anything. So that's my opinion, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Just name and city, please.
Good evening, Josh Wilson, Cedar Falls. I also just drove down here tonight just to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the council, for your diligence on this matter. I've worked in the state capitol in Des Moines and in Washington, D.C., and I can assure anyone in this room who thinks that Congress or the state legislature is going to take a resolution from the Cedar Falls City Council and change the world, you're in for some heartbreak. I think this is an issue that needs to be debated in the halls of Congress. It can be debated in the state legislature. It already was. There was a proclamation down there, resolution, one-sided on the Israel front, and I think people need to travel to Des Moines and fill the State House to have their voices heard. But I don't think local city council chambers are the place to do that. I expect you all to talk about things like trash and sidewalks and speed limits and taxes in the local community, because that's what I elected you to do. I also want to just direct my comments to you, Danny, but I want to go on record, Mayor Loddick, excuse me, I want to go on record and say thank you to members of the council all members of the council who I have vehemently disagreed with on numerous occasions. Councilmember Dunn and Councilmember Schultz, I want to say thank you for a time when this council chamber was actually empty. I don't know how many people in here know, but this former council actually voted to give themselves a pay increase for their service to the community last year. And I didn't see very many folks in here talking about that, but now they want to hold you accountable. So it's important to be tied in on every issue that comes before the council. So I want to say thank you to Councilmember Dunn and Councilmember Schultz, who listened to the concerns from the constituents on both sides of that issue and brought a compromise before the council. To Councilman Ganfield, I know he is a staunch believer in listening to people in this community. He's met with me when I've reached out. I know he's met with others, so thank you to him. The same to Councilman Cruz, who has gone out of his way on many occasions to hear both sides of the story. And I know Councilman Hawbaker's in virtual land today, but his profession outside of his service on the council is admirable to his public service. And although I disagree vehemently with several of those people I just mentioned, I won't stand for their character being degraded for their stance on this issue. So again, I would encourage everyone who feels passionately about this, take your voices to DC, take your voices to Des Moines, write those letters, even if you get form letters back. I can assure you they matter. They keep track of those things in DC. But when the United Nations when the United States ambassador to the United Nations vetoes a ceasefire resolution on behalf of the Biden administration, I would say this is a quite bipartisan predicament we find ourselves in, but I trust so much more the people in Washington, D.C., our diplomats, our members of the armed services. I trust them so much more, with all due respect, to solve this issue than any of you sitting up there. And I just needed to come down and say that. So thank you very much.
And quickly, I will ask, since we have people on both sides, typically we don't allow applause just to make sure this doesn't become a competition of who can applaud louder. But so for the time being with that, let's just keep it to the comments and no applause, please. Just name and city, please.
Sam Trumpold, Cedar Falls. I have never been to a city council meeting before, let alone spoken at a city council meeting before. I will admit I have been a lazy Democrat. I have not cared when my trash gets picked up. I have not cared how my mail arrives. I trust you guys to deal with that stuff. But when it becomes an issue of human rights and literally life and death, and yet the issue is not resolved at a city level and the voices are not being listened to, I feel the need to make my voice more apparent. In terms of things that have been said about you should be taking your voice to DC, you should be sending emails, you should be doing all of these things. I have taken my voice to DC, not for this issue specifically because I do not have the budget as a college student, but prior in my life I have. I do daily send emails. But clearly that is not working. Clearly the small things we do on the scale are not enough. And in terms of what is and isn't a city issue, this is not just a city issue. Absolutely, it's not. It needs to be dealt with everywhere. But this is an issue at every level, which is why you have people in this room today, which is why you see people at city council, at state levels, at national levels. You are seeing people at every level. But we're not here to talk about what other people's jobs are. We're here to talk about what your constituents expect of you. And the expectations have been made very, very clear, but we will continue to make them clear until they are listened to. Free Palestine, we're calling for a ceasefire. This is a city issue. This is an issue at every single level that it is present at. And no matter how you can make your voice heard, I think you should be making it heard. So thank you to everybody here who showed up today. It's really important. Continue doing the small things. Continue speaking about it at a larger level. But as this issue continues to be brought up, because it will continue to be brought up, understand that it is a city issue. Because as much as we can talk to our representatives, they will not care. They will not care what I have to say as a college student as much as they will care what the city of Cedar Falls has to say. And that is why we are asking you. If you wonder why it is a city issue, it is because we could send hundreds of emails as individuals, but we do not have the respect of the same level of respect as your organization, which is why we are asking you to call for this ceasefire, and the decision to continue to ignore these requests and deny that it is a part of your responsibility is, quite frankly, like just appalling to see. We are all humans and we are fighting for human rights. And the fact that all of us who are here and do have the resources to come, because this is not every person in Cedar Falls who is calling for a ceasefire. This is the people that had the time and the money and the availability to come here. There are more people than this that want a ceasefire. But the fact that this has been made clear to everyone here and you guys continue to ignore these voices is really disheartening. So I will leave with Free Palestine and call for a ceasefire.
Thank you, Sarah. And again, we'll hold on the clapping if you could, please. Yes, Noah?
I need to get my voice in here because as I communicated to the council, I have to leave early tonight.
Is everyone okay? Typically, we hold comment till after.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Go ahead. I just wanted to say that we have UNI Day at the Capitol tomorrow. This is an event that we've worked on with the university. We transport a lot of students. Alumni are welcome to come. We're talking about advocacy. We're talking about the Capitol. I'm not going to say that in direct correlation to UNI Day because UNI Day is through the university and through the students. But I would just say, going to the Capitol and communicating with your legislators is still an option, and there is power in that. It makes me sad as a political science student to hear people say there is no power in that. There's extreme power in that. You have to utilize that. So, but that's not what I wanted to say. 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Tomorrow, Tuesday, in the main rotunda area. Wear your purple and gold. It's going to be a really good event, and that's the reason I'm leaving early tonight. I'm not avoiding anybody or anything like that. I just have to get out of here and go do some final planning for that event, and I hope to see everybody there who loves our Regent universities. Our public universities are so important. They're so important here to the Cedar Valley, and we have to support them. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow, and I hope to see many of you there.
Thank you, Noah. All right, we'll return back to public comment.
Okay.
Stummy.
Hi.
Just
I'm
name and
Larry
city,
Stummy,
please.
and I live at 1008 Lois Lane in Waterloo. And for 23 years, I've been serving in a little church in Cedar Falls called St. Paul Lutheran Church. March 7th is the 59th anniversary of Selma, Alabama's Bloody Sunday. About a dozen of us from the Urban Training Center in Chicago answered Martin Luther King's call to join him on March 9th to march to Montgomery to open the voting rights for all, especially for Black Americans. On March 9th, after we arrived, we're traveling all night on Monday on a train, and when we arrived on Tuesday, we were led by Martin Luther King, and hundreds of us walked from the church through the city streets that were lined by people yelling at us and calling us names, to the bridge on the road to Montgomery. I was about 10, 15 rows back from Dr. King, and as we approached over the top of the bridge, we saw hundreds of troops and soldiers ready to stop us. And then all of a sudden, we were told to kneel and sit down. And Dr. King had a prayer, and we turned, I think maybe Abernathy might have had the prayer, and we turned around and went back to the church. was only that evening that we learned that Dr. King had, in consultation with the Attorney General, and they were going to send the National Guard to help and to protect the people marching to Montgomery. As I look back today, I have mixed feelings and observations. On the positive side, I am thankful for the many gains in voting and civil rights in the U.S. that resulted from the Selma March. But at the same time, I am saddened and angry about the lack of progress for Black Americans in Alabama, in the United States, and in Waterloo, Cedar Falls. After 59 years, voting rights for blacks are challenged by racist laws and the Supreme Court rulings. Economic benefits for blacks lag nationally and locally, with a disparity in housing and family wealth and schools and members that are incarcerated and unemployed. That problem is a problem not only nationally, it's a problem here in the Waterloo Cedar Falls area. We are one community. There's no sharp line when you walk from Cedar Falls to Waterloo. We are one community. And the problems of Waterloo are the problems of Cedar Falls. We need each other. And we need as I understand, the black population in Cedar Falls is just a little over 1%. We have to realize that this is a population of the whole community, not just Cedar Falls, but we are a community that needs to help each other, especially the vulnerable. That's the basic duty, as I'm concerned, with government, to help the vulnerable and the weak. And nobody in this community has more problems than the black community, has been shown by many studies. And it's our privilege and your duty as leaders of the community, as elected leaders, because I think you have the tremendous responsibility and privilege to do something about it, and things can be done. We've got to work together as one community to solve this problem and to work and to raise the level of living for the black community that is among us and with us.
30 seconds.
As President Truman said in his famous words, "The buck stops here. We can do something, and we must." Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Just name and city, please.
My name is Ali Arman. I work in Waterloo. I live in Waterloo, but I also work in Cedar Falls. I'm actually not going to talk about Palestine and the role of the city on that. There have already been people who've said everything that needs to be said. I do want to pick up on what the last speaker was talking about. So a couple of speakers ago, you had someone in here who said that we should go to the State House. We do that all the time. Hundreds of calls have been made to Congress. We experience our congressional representatives actually asking if we support terrorism. Their staff people say these kinds of things to us, right? That's a Miller Meeks staff person quote. It's unfortunate. What I want to highlight is I have worked in activist security for 20 years. And that does not mean that I do dangerous things. It means I do everything I can to try to keep people safe when all they are doing is expressing their voices. I want to talk about the culture and climate that has been promoted by city folks in the context of this conversation, which has really been about asking for a conversation, which has been denied, asking for a conversation. I think I haven't heard anything quite so dangerous yet as being willing to repeat constituents' comments that they feel scared to come here because we are here. Everybody I work with, I have not tolerated or even heard anyone trying to say that they would like to do something intimidating, scary, illegal, any of that. That's not what we're doing. It has been difficult to know that after I speak here, people in the public imply that I might have a connection to Hamas. And I think we know why people would imply that. But if someone says, we don't want to come down here and speak anymore because these people are here who are asking for a conversation about not being involved in violence, it is not a good idea to repeat that in a meeting. Those are the kinds of things you need to shut down, and I'll tell you why. When Mr. Wilson left this room, I said, hey, we've spoken before. And he said, do you want to talk to me? I said, no, we've spoken before. Because I had an online conversation with him last year about his use of monkey emojis to describe black women in this town, because he wanted to make a point about an election. He threatened to sue anybody who told that he had done that, which I assume he'll be doing that to me after this tonight. All I said was, we've spoken before. Do you remember the monkey emojis? He looked at me and he said, finger in my face, see, you're the reason that we don't come down here, because you harass people. I said hello and referenced a very calm conversation that we had online. But because city officials were okay saying that out loud and validating those kinds of racist fears, he did that. And I said, whoa. And he goes, you can't talk to me if I don't want to be talked to. You all heard a little bit of volume out here. The last thing he said is, if you say hello to me again, I'll press charges. That happened out there. I wasn't even going to come in. When you all repeat the fears of people who are acting out of dog whistle racism and don't want to talk about these things, or just people who are scared to talk about controversy, you give validation to that kind of behavior. I'm expecting a lawsuit, and this guy literally said he was going to press charges if I said hello. I'm 5'4", what are you scared of, man? You're the one who used the monkey pictures to talk about black women, that's unacceptable. I wasn't going to say anything about that, right? He literally said he would press charges if I said hello. And that people don't come down here because of us. I don't think it's okay anymore to say, no, we're not going to talk about that. People are scared of you. People always say I'm intimidating. Why? For real. I'm a computer programmer. Seriously, man, I'm 5'4", okay? When you shut down public dialogue and not one counselor says, I think this is important, but some of you say, this should go away, and people are scared of you, you've created a bad culture and something scary, and I don't want to be in Cedar Falls an hour longer. So I'm saying whatever you want to think about the issues, don't let public dialogue and democracy erode like that. Do not keep repeating. Do not ask questions about who we are. Don't ask other people, city council members. Don't ask other people to find out who I am and who I'm connected to. I know what you mean by that. This got to stop. You guys don't have a choice to do nothing now. You got to do something about this. You're saying you want to protect folks, and you're literally putting the language out there to let these people come after us. All I said was hello. Remember me. And it wasn't intimidating. I just wanted to put a face to someone I talked to online, calmly.
That's 5 minutes, Alia. Thank you. And again, everyone, please hold the clappings, keep the quorum in here. Yeah, come on. Name and city, please.
I'm Michael Blackwell, and I live in Cedar Falls. I've been coming here with Reverend Stummy since July of last year. And we have talked primarily about racism in Cedar Falls and in the Cedar Valley, that it exists, that it's pervasive, and it's every day. It's been over a century since blacks settled in boxcars in Waterloo and were also ostracized by Cedar Falls. The racism they experienced in housing, income, mobility, education, etc., has morphed and fluctuated over the decades, but its harshness is as pervasive as it was from the initial arrival. Perhaps we are so used to it that we're anesthetized and silent over the injustice and inequity. We do not invest our energies to ensure that meaningful and marked improvements are in the offing. Whereas it's nice to have entertaining escapes from the substandard quality of life people have, they do not address and redress the urgent needs of people in the community. We must be in earnest actualizing the vision of our metropolitan area. At UNI, I was instrumental in contracting with the Anti-Defamation League, a Campus of Difference program in the early 2001s. During the first few minutes of one day's session, a staff member, who I will not name, but most of you know this person, interrupted the introduction of my co-facilitator and me to declare that racism did not exist, that racism was not on campus or in the community. We did not expect such a blatantly ignorant statement at a diversity workshop of all things, and realized the attendance of the clueless person who was merely to check the box that he attended this strongly encouraged program by his supervisors. When my vice president, whom I told, responded in disbelief, I showed him the comments written by a few individuals about the saboteur. Several times in class or in consultation with students, I wondered if they experienced only racism as they were growing up. Initially, I was amazed over the negative comments that no, they did not experience racism. But as I proceeded to ask them about their parents, where they lived, what schools they attended, what stores were in their neighborhoods, who their friends were, and so forth, I discovered that racism surrounded and encompassed their lives, but they did not remember ever talking about it. Sometimes when the white students spoke of racial bigotry in the families and in neighborhoods, I was so surprised, because usually you would think that the black people would be more forthcoming, but they were not. When we have various political and religious leaders stating that the United States is not and never was a racist country, we are forced and faced with the stark reality that there is a lot of truth-telling that needs to occur. We must do it in the Cedar Valley and make effective amends. And what those amends should be.
30 seconds, Reverend Semi. 30 seconds.
Well, I would like to say that you made a statement about what we do here in Cedar Falls. Well, it's quite clear we don't do it because racism still exists and still obstructs people's quality of life in this community. And we need to work together with Waterloo to make a better place for black people to live and other people of color. And so let's not just talk about it, let's do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Again, everyone, we can only have the decorum here on both sides, and I know we've shown respect to be able to make sure your comments can be heard, but we can only do that if we're able to maintain the decorum. And so I understand, but I also want to make sure people on the other side aren't trying to overclap, and so just please respect the process, or we will need to ask somebody to leave. So, and I don't want to do that, so thank you. Just name the city, please.
Oh, sorry. Good evening. My name is Jason Drosty. I live here in Cedar Falls. I just wanted to just dovetail off of what these gentlemen and what all the speakers are saying here today, that we're not asking for much. We're just asking you to listen. We're asking you to do due process. I'm not going to get up here and say any more than that, but I will make this one statement about people being scared to engage here because I'm here, I'm not taking it personally, but royal I is in, for the longest time, being a multiracial gentleman here in the Cedar Valley, I was scared to do this. And now that I'm on the Human Rights Council, I feel a little bit more confident. This is my second time speaking here, and it's the second time I've ever been at a city council. So I'm just going to say that. I was in the military for 6.5 years, and when I came back here, I grew up in Cedar Rapids, but I came back here and I lived in Waterloo, and everyone that was in my unit, that when I got transferred here, said to watch out for Cedar Falls. I say that because we've all had experiences here. I'm not saying it personally at your hands or anyone's hands, but I'm just saying there is fear, and it wasn't from us. It was fear. I generally was scared to come over here and engage. And so just directed at you, not at everyone, or not to just you, but everyone should have a right to speak, just like that gentleman did, even though highly questionable what his motives were. I mean, you could say that about anyone, but we're not instilling fear. We're trying to get rid of it. I know they left, but I welcome that they had their opinions as well. You know, they have the right to say it. We have the right to say it. You'll be seeing a lot more of me just because I work in the HRC, and I want to be more involved in my community. Hopefully, I can get to know all you guys. I plan on knowing all you guys. I plan on talking to everyone somehow, some way. So just dovetailing off of what these gentlemen said here and everyone else, we just want you to take what we're saying, digest it, really learn. You know, I'm not saying you guys have to be swayed on how you want to think, but be open. 30 seconds. That's all I'm imploring, is just be open, listen. Don't think that just because there's a force here that people are going to be scared to show up. I mean, I'm here, and I was scared, and now I'm feeling empowered to say something. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jason. Again, please. Name and city, please.
Hi there. Oh, that's really loud. Hello, guys. Sorry. My name is Brad Krug. I live here in Cedar Falls. This is my very first time coming to a meeting and talking, so I want to acknowledge that it's a little intimidating, and it's also 8 o'clock, so we're a little bit sleepy, but it's going to be okay. So I just wanted to acknowledge that everybody I'm seeing up here is white passing, at least. I can't say for sure how you identify. And we've heard from people of all backgrounds. But as a person that is white, I want to let you know that this isn't just an issue for people who have different colored bodies than we do. It's for everybody. I also want to remind you of a quote, and I believe it's by Maya Angelou, but correct me if I'm wrong, but don't cancel me, please, that when you have power, it is your job to empower other people. And then when we're asking for just a conversation, the only reason that any of you are able to sit in those chairs is because somebody took the time to have a conversation with you. We just ask that you give us the same courtesy. You can have your opinion after having an educated conversation. However, if you ever decide to have a conversation, we ask that you show up and actively listen, because we're taught that since you're like a child, and you guys are all grown-ups. All of you are capable of doing it. So we just ask that don't give us an empty conversation, but give us a quality one. And also, I would like to add, that I'm a little anxious, but it's going to be okay. For so long, People have made choices out of fear, and maybe that's why we're not having a conversation. I didn't plan on coming up here and speaking, but I hope that this proves to you that it's okay to just try, and then once you're in that space, you can learn more. Also, we don't have to keep making choices out of fear. You can make choices out of love and wanting to understand, and not necessarily agreeing, but maybe understanding where the person's coming from, because then we would have, everybody walks away having a little bit more respect for the other person. And thank you for your time. Yeah, make choices out of love, not fear, because the personality of being scared of this country, making choices out of fear is kind of exhausting. And imagine how much progress we could make if we just respected the other person and made choices out of love. Thanks. Peace out.
Thank you, Brad. Again, we need to maintain the decorum, so that will be the last warning. I will have to ask for people to go out into the foyer if we can't maintain that, so thank you. Any other speakers for public comment tonight? Just name and city, please.
John Greer, Cedar Falls. I'll be brief. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals for public comment? Just name and city.
Hi, Kyle Karkosh. I live in Waterloo, but I was a Cedar Falls resident for about 15 years. I hate public speaking, and this is incredibly uncomfortable. But when you tell us that this is not a local issue, I would like to remind you that all of the city, everything that makes this city run is paid for by taxes, and those taxes come out of hours of my life. I pay for everything that happens in city government. We all do. That is hours of our lives being taxed. It's not just money, it's hours of my lives. I work 45 to about 60 hours every day, or every week, I'm sorry. And I worked 10 hours today and decided that it was important for me to come spend the rest of my night to come talk to you. And to tell me that those hours of my life aren't city business, when it's your salary being paid by our taxes, is really disappointing. That's all.
Thank you, Kyle. Any other speakers? Yeah. Just name and city, please.
Hi, Charlie Grove. I live in Waterloo. And I was sitting out there when that fella had the altercation with Alia. And I'll tell you, it's not fun to have to stand up and get in between someone who's coming at your friend. Like, when we talk about, like, who's intimidating who here? Like, people are intimidated by us, and yet they're the ones coming at us. Like, physically. Like, I had to stand up because this man came at her. Like, we're not the ones inciting violence. Our words are not inciting violence. Yours are. So if anyone is intimidated by anyone, it's you trying to intimidate us into not speaking. It's those people coming here trying to intimidate us into not speaking. We do not go and point in their faces and come at them and say, you need to do this, you need to do that. No. We politely come and do our civic duty and speak in front of you. And man, it's been a long night, hasn't it? It would really suck if every meeting was like this, where you have an hour, maybe 2 hours of public comment. Wouldn't that suck? And all you could have done to avoid this is have a work session and then have a vote. That's what we want. Isn't it annoying? Isn't this annoying? Doesn't it suck waiting here? Doesn't it suck just sitting here? Don't you have lives? I do. Well, no, I don't. Let's be honest, I don't have a life. But yeah, this is how we do it. Like, we also call the state and, state senators, the ones that go to Washington and also the ones within our own state. We also do those things, but you're also our local representatives. You're government. You were elected, and to abdicate your responsibility, it's just getting tiring. Like, at least Waterloo, at least they have a semblance of like having an actual city. Every time I come to Cedar Falls, it's like you're putting on a play of having a city. It's like, oh, let's just have a city and let's have it be mostly white people. Because that's what it is. It's mostly white people. Man, have I heard the N-word come from white mouths more than ever when I lived in Cedar Falls. Business owners on Main Street. Do you know what racist people call watermelons? It's an N-word pickle. Yeah, when I worked at Pablo's, the owner said that to me. He thought it was a funny joke. That's the kind of people who live in your community. That's the kind of community you're fostering. That's why I live in Waterloo, aside from the fact that someone was murdered in my backyard and they never solved it when I lived in Cedar Falls. That was pretty crazy. Cedar Falls is a fun city to live in, it seems like. I'm glad I don't live here.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, just name and city, please.
Hi, my name is Breon Briscoe. I remember I served you at Applebee's. I'm a Black trans individual as well. I was very happy for you, and I'm happy for every council member here. My great-grandma, the matriarch of my family, has lived here for years. And she always said that Cedar Falls was a sundown town, which if you get that reference, you get it. And the effects of like racism, bigotry, ignorance is still prevalent in the city today. And I think that I'm a walking example of experiencing those things. And I just want to say that everybody's here to peacefully protest or state their piece. And yeah, this is my first city council meeting, and I'll keep coming back until change happens. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you, Breon. Any other speakers for public comment? And I'll give a second for anyone in the hallway as well. Any other speakers? Okay, thank you again, everyone, for coming out tonight. So we will move on to actually council. Would anyone like a break, need a break? Just a quick 5 minutes or? Okay, we'll keep moving on. So moving on to staff updates. Do we have any staff updates? Jen, I believe.
Can we just go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just want to let everyone know that the city of Cedar Falls will be hosting a career fair on Saturday, March 23rd from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Public Works Complex, 2200 Technology Parkway. We'll be featuring openings we have for part-time, full-time, seasonal. We'll have our Public Works, our Public Safety, and our Rec Division all there. But we'll also have information about any open positions at the city, and if anyone's interested in checking out what those positions may be, you can feel free to come to the career fair or actually just check out our website at cedarfalls.com/jobs. So just want to invite people to come to that. Just had a second item, just real quick, parking. As you know, we're having a study going on. We hosted some public meetings last week, Monday and Tuesday. The online survey is still open through the end of tonight, so I just thought I'd put one last plug in to, if you're interested and want to get your input in on the survey. I think Denny has the QR code up there, but it's also on the sign right when you walk out the door as well. So if you're interested in parking and want to provide input, there's still time yet.
Any questions, comments? Yeah.
Just a quick question for Director Rodebeck. Is the public meetings recorded that we can view them, or anybody from the public can view those?
They were not recorded, no.
It's unfortunate, I guess, but
I can give you the rundown.
There was a person there with the consultant taking notes, so that was captured.
Yeah, the consultant will have all the notes, and I think included in their updates. All right, we'll move on to special order of business. And first is a public hearing on proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2024 street restoration project. I believe you guys have a memo in front of you for this. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication and notice of hearing?
Second. So move.
Moved and seconded, and requires any conversation? And any from the public? All right, requires a voice vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I believe we have staff comments from Ben Claypool. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. First time in front of a handful of you. Tonight's public hearing is on the 2024 street restoration project. This project involves the restoration of 6 city streets totaling 1.54 miles of restoration work. These streets are Linden Avenue from Delta Drive to Hudson Road, Laurel Circle from Hudson Road to Clark Drive, Nordic Drive from the dead end in the industrial park about 500 feet past the Westminster Drive intersection, Grand Boulevard from Timber Drive to the River Hills School Drive just near Galloway Avenue, Lone Tree Road from Ford Road to Hiawatha Road, and Green Hill Road from Hudson Road to Ashworth Road. We have 3 of those roads are overlays, 2 are mill and overlays where we'll be removing the existing asphalt surface, putting down a new asphalt surface on top, and then the Green Hill Road in particularly will be a saw and steel asphalt overlay. That's a similar treatment to what was done on Hudson Road, where we put the asphalt down and put the saw joints in it to get a even longer service life out of our larger and more arterial roadways. Work on this project will include approximately 11,500 square yards of asphalt removal by milling, 5,400 tons of asphalt placement, 7,000 linear feet of pavement saw cutting, replacement of pedestrian ramps, modifications to existing storm intakes, sanitary sewer manhole adjustments, and pavement striping. Total estimated cost for the construction of this project is approximately $1.56 million, and the project will be funded primarily through local option sales tax, the street construction fund, and the general obligation fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Do we have any public comments on this item? If not, we will consider the public hearing closed and look for a motion to approve resolution approving the adopting the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2024 street reconstruction project.
So moved. Second.
Second, and open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Gamble.
Mr. Claypool, if I could, I just wanted to get a clarification on the Green Hill Road improvements. Is that the presupposed destination of Ashworth to be connected that's going to be restored?
That is.
How's that timing going to work, I guess, is what I'm curious about.
Sorry, just restate your question. So
how's that timing going to work since Ashworth isn't yet connected, right?
So Ashworth and Algonquin both swing up basically on either side of Green Hill, and then that car wash, the new business is there. So it'll be from that connection.
I apologize, I'm looking at the wrong side. Thank you.
No worries.
Mr.
Mayor, to
Councilmember
piggyback on that, what is that process going to look like? It's a pretty major thoroughfare through there.
Yep, fortunately with this type of restoration work, it's written for the contractor to provide their staging plan under the city's approval, but it's also written that at least one direction of travel is maintained throughout that process. So even during whatever work's going on, Green Hill operation east-west will still function exactly how it's supposed to. The process is not very long once the work is actually ongoing. It's a handful of days as they get it down and get it sawn.
Great, thanks, Ben.
Any other council discussion, questions? All right, so we have motion second and requires a roll call vote. Actually, apologies, do we need public comment for this as well? What's the motion?
We did.
Okay, so roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion does pass. So moving on to old business, item number 2, to pass ordinance number 3049, amending Chapter 17, Parks and Recreation of the Code of Ordinances relative to the cemetery section upon its third and final consideration. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded and open for any discussion, council. And any discussion from the public? Seeing none, we will go to a roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move on to item number 3, pass ordinance number 3050, amending Chapter 23, Traffic Motor Vehicle of the Code of Ordinances relative to the speed limit on certain portions of West 27th Street. Upon its third and final consideration, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. And any discussion or questions from council? Any from the public? We'll move to a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now move on to the consent calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests the specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items on the consent calendar to be considered separately from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, then we'll look for a motion to approve items 4 through 6 on the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion and second. And we will move to voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the resolution calendar. So the following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items on the resolution calendar to be considered separately from council? And any from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll look to a motion to approve items 7 through, let me go to the multiple pages, 43. Motioned. It's been motioned.
Second.
Seconded. And a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. So now move on to allowing bills and claims. Do we have a motion to allow bills and claims from our fourth? Motioned
Second.
and seconded. And a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any council updates or announcements? Seeing none, move on to council referrals. So we have item number 45 to refer to committee of the whole discussion or city council an ordinance to change the speed limit on Center Street between Lone Tree Road and Clare Street to be a continuous 25 miles per hour. This is the item that Mark Succi spoke to earlier. Gil, you asked for this. Do you want to give a quick?
Yeah, we discussed this at the North Cedar Neighborhood Association meetings a number of times, actually dating back into the previous year. And the discussion was, my impression was we were going to move it right to the agenda. But if need be, we can certainly advance it on to a discussion as a committee as a whole. I would prefer that we, from the discussion that you've listened to from the Mark Succi from speaking on behalf of the association, and discussions I've had with other folks that are not associated with the association but live in the community of North Cedar, that this is the preferred speed limit in that area. Particularly, it started off being that after the four-way stop was put in, that the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit that had been present from, and still is present, north of Lone Tree is then was picked up until the school zone, which people then got to 35 and then had to get down to 25 in time for the school zone. And to Mark's point, that's about 2 blocks, and then shortly after the school zone, then it would pick up, which has been questionable or questioned in the past on why is it a 2.5 block school zone to the north and only a half a block to the south. So I think it's a valid idea, and I'd like to see us either move it on or get it on a vote similar to what we've done on 27th Street.
And we did have it on here for referral to committee of the whole or city council if everyone felt that it was a pretty common sense thing to do and felt it was okay to just have the ordinance on the city council agenda without the committee discussion. I don't know if I've talked with staff on it, but.
I entertain an official motion.
Oh, thank you for that.
Second.
Do a motion and seconded.
I mean, I'm asking, we should entertain an official motion to the effect.
I'm fine with Dustin's not doing it, so you go ahead.
I wasn't making the motion, I'm requesting a definitive motion.
Gil, would you like the motion?
I would like to motion that we move this to a vote of 25
Second.
miles an hour.
So it's been motioned and seconded. So open the discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
I guess with the advent of the stop sign at Lone Tree Road made the speed limit issue little increments of speed, and therefore I think it'd be prudent to level it all out, for a simplistic word.
Mr. Mayor, correct that this would take 3 readings, similar to what we just did with 27th Street, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Believe
Great.
And Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Ganfield.
not to be a stick in the mud on this or anything, but I know some of the new council persons haven't had all the dialogue on it. I just wanted to verify, do we have any issue with changing that speed without warrant? And do we need to have a traffic study first before we would change that ordinance? So I'm looking at both Kevin and Chase.
Sorry, I guess I'll jump in front of Mr. Gaines right now, but generally, I guess traditionally, we'd like to do an engineering analysis on the corridor to determine what the best speed would be, or best speed limit. Obviously, at this point, without looking at any data and doing any traffic study, there's been significant changes to the corridor with the streetscaping and some of the elements being right up next to the edge of the traveled lane. That center stretches within the school zone. And then obviously mid to late last summer, we had the installation of that stop sign, making it a 4-way stop. So it there's been a lot of significant changes to the corridor. So without seeing any data, I don't know that I'd have an issue with it at this point. But traditionally, we would do a traffic study. Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I guess common sense tells me that, I don't know that I drove from Blackhawk Park the other day through there, and I understand what's being said, but I do always hesitate from going away. But at least if we did do from going away from the normal, I guess, process, the 4-way stop was already it was away from the normal process, and I voted for that. But I guess what I'm getting at is we'll still have, even if we did put it on the agenda, we're still going to have 3 readings where folks can weigh in. Would we still get any input from staff if we did it that way, or how would that be handled?
I guess I don't know what other input you would want from
Right.
us without
Right.
some data.
Exactly. Okay. Now, I will, because this is kind of along the same way, at goal setting, we talked about I think, what is the official title of it's not a traffic study, but we were going to have a policy in place or a referral to hire a consultant, so we make sure we don't have these so we have a consistent policy that's up to date with current standards.
Yeah, that'll be at some point here in 2024.
Sure.
And you're referring to the traffic management program that we're developing.
Sure. I guess, again, having just drove through there on Saturday, common sense tells me I know exactly what they're talking about. And so maybe in this instance, since we did make that change, it is because of the stop sign that it seems weird now. Because before it didn't seem weird, or at least I didn't think. So I guess I'm okay with it.
It's for, if anyone that hasn't driven up there, essentially at this point, it goes up to 35 as you're approaching the stop sign. So it essentially tells you to speed up and then stop. And then it goes to 35.
Right. Particularly going north
Yeah.
is when it gets confusing, but.
To be fair, we made it confusing.
Yes.
So let's own it.
Some of us can claim
But
we're here for that.
again,
Yeah.
to a lot of positive comments and reports out of North Cedar that they really treasure now having that safety.
So to clarify quick, because we do have this written as an or option, and we did not, I think, in the motion clarify, I believe, Gil, you were asking, if I can clarify for you, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were motioning to have it on the agenda, the ordinance for approval for the
Yes.
speed limit.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion currently on the floor and seconded to move to have on the city council agenda an ordinance to change the speed limit on Center Street between Lone Tree Road and Clear Street to be a continuous 25 miles per hour. Any other discussion? And to clarify, do we need public comment on referral discussions?
The rules state that every time there's a council action, the public's invited to render input.
Okay, so any public comment on this item as well? So seeing none, we'll move to a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So moving to council referral number 46, we have a refer to committee of the whole discussion on regular council meetings to be held on Tuesdays. Daryl, you just want to give a quick background to this?
Yeah, this actually came up a number of years ago. I heard of places having these, and then more recently, I was in another community where I spoke at a Tuesday council meeting, and I thought, wow, I wonder how many other places have this. So I did the old Google search and delved into different communities and out of state and in state, and I found that about 2/3 of the communities out there had Tuesdays. Wednesday was maybe 10-15%, some Thursdays, no Fridays that I could find, and then generally in Iowa is the only place I found Monday meetings. But thinking about citizens, council members, staff working through the weekend, enjoying the weekend, coming back, Monday blues, Monday chaos, Monday putting out fires, it would be, I think, beneficial to look at a Tuesday council meeting, and curious what any obstacles there might be, if any.
And so do we have a motion?
I make a motion to have Cedar Falls City Council meetings on Tuesdays.
And look for a second.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. We're making the motion to have probably assuming some kind of discussion.
Yeah, just to refer to committee of the whole discussion on this item. So tonight we were just discussing if we want to have a discussion on this item. So it's been motioned. Do we have a second?
I think I had the same point of order just because of the wording, Councilman Cruz. You were moving to refer this to committee of whole,
okay.
correct?
Yeah.
You want to
Yes.
reword?
Okay, I retract what I said and want to reiterate that I make a motion to refer the topic of Tuesday Cedar Falls City Council meetings to committee of the whole for discussion.
Second.
Okay, now we'll open it up to discussion. I can quickly, just speaking with staff, I know one issue, and we can get into the details if we decide to have a discussion on this, but there was just one concern of just timing with sports programs. I know Channel 15, they have to be out for a lot of sports programs, so it does cause some conflict there, but just wanted to make sure I included that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Dunn.
This is one where I've kind of, in my own, since I got the email about the referral, kind of gone back and forth in my own head. It's one of those things where I don't know that I have I guess I just don't know that there's a reason, and I understand the referrals to discuss it, but those take time, that takes time. I just don't know that I have if the majority wants the discussion, I'm okay with that, but I also don't know that I have the information of, enough to sway me to even have the discussion, I guess, is just kind of my thoughts, and I'd be interested in, and I know we're not trying to get in the weeds, but that's my initial thought.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Lala.
I think my thought process on this would weigh heavily on the staff's opinion, one way or the other on this. If it's seen as a benefit by staff in some way, whether it's Monday or Tuesday really doesn't matter to me. I guess I'd just like to get an understanding from staff as part of that referral and in that conversation with the committee of the whole, really, truly where the staff falls on this, because I think that to me probably drives the decision.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, any discussion from the public? So we have motion and a second to refer to committee of the whole discussion on regular city council meetings to be held on Tuesdays. And with motion second, so a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I believe that carries with 4-2. All right, that will be, and we'll look at, do we want to give direction on
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I think council had a,
It wasn't clear to me who voted how, so I just want to make sure you think you've got it, Mayor? 4-2. Kim?
It was Dunn, and then Schultz with nays.
And everyone else for?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then just to, now that we have that clarified for direction for myself to work with staff, we do have a few items on the council. I know we talked about this morning. We're looking at maybe at the next meeting, if we had enough time in the agenda for the work session to put it on there. But we would maybe include, we have a few things on there with the College Hill Vision Plan. No, we were looking at the first one in April. Jen, can you clarify?
Sure. Actually, the first one in April would probably be the only night we couldn't do it
Okay.
because we have that 5/15 budget thing, that date that we really have to reserve that night. So I think next meeting on our committee schedule, we had College Hill, zoning and visioning, and conflict of interest, but there potentially could be time to do this one as well, or I think it would have to wait till the second one in April otherwise.
Yep. And there's no set date on the referrals, so it'd be your jurisdiction and discretion.
Okay, if that, everyone's comfortable with that, I can work with staff to figure out if it makes sense.
Groovy.
Okay. With no other items, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you, Aaron.